thought it was blue.
No?
I must have been after that coffee was actually the other day.
Oh, does Andy have another little side project going on?
Probably 10, I don't know.
Well, I get another thing in the mail. Another solar or something or other. Do Andy think on it?
Cole is Carter planning on calling us in?
Yep,
Calling
he says
in?
he's on the conference
It's under a
line.
different name.
He hasn't so much shown up here yet, but he can call him or he can call us, either way.
What is it? All members, oh wait, I just saw it.
I
That's
think
what-
that we've texted him
Name.
and are of the belief that he's on.
Yeah.
Just this minute, he said he was on the conference line. Can you
I knew you guys
hear
were
him or?
peace out there.
Yes.
All right, let's see, I didn't hear it ring, so.
And then,
But we haven't submitted it.
and then we still have one from the manual that
Herman.
Herman. I can't remember. Thought it was something that's solar.
No,
Or maybe it just got a website or something promoting it. I don't know. I didn't pay much attention.
No, I don't know what it is.
Getting to the point now where
did he enter his
like
PIN
there's mail
number?
coming in now from the farm because everything's been taken over.
Mhm.
Just the way I like it.
Good, we're trying to get this thing to work and
Want to use this?
Need a bigger one.
I got one in the car.
Hello? Carter?
Yes.
Good, we got you on here. This is Steve Seekins from Town of Pittsfield.
All right, Steve, how are you?
I'm great, how are you?
Doing well.
All right, bear with us just a minute, we got one more person to get on here.
Okay, and hey, I was just on the conference line, and Anna was on there. She said she's on the board, but she's home.
Okay.
So there are a few other folks on the conference line.
Okay. Anna, are you on there? Let me call her. This is my first time with this.
Nobody's accepting. Nobody's accepting.
Steve, I might be able to hit merge calls on my phone and merge this in with the
That's weird.
conference line that you opened up.
That's what
Okay.
That's what he has to do.
All
Should
right.
I try that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anna is not answering her phone. Her phone number,
We'll see if she's here. Hey, Jim and Anna, do I still have you?
I am still here.
All right, and Steve, are you still there?
I'm still there. So we,
Great.
so
Jim, that's Jim.
just a minute, I wanna get, we got Carter and Ian, and you said there was somebody else?
Jim, Moorhead.
Jim Moore, okay. And Carter and Ian, right?
Yeah.
Anna, excuse me.
All right, Steve, I'll forgive you.
Okay, Okay, guess we're ready to go.
If you call the meeting to order, if you would please join with me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so, Ron, you can either be Simone or Stan tonight.
I don't think I could live up to either one of them, so, but I'll take a stab at it.
Okay, but you are a voting member, so. Okay, one of the things I swore I would not do today is we're living with a new normal. I'm so sick and tired of that expression.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So things are a little bit different, but we'll kind of get there, and I appreciate you all coming out tonight. God, is it hard to be. I'm going to change the order of the agenda around just a little bit. But before I tell you what that's going to be, if we could adopt the minutes of the meeting of March the 9th, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any corrections or changes?
Who was the second?
Brent.
Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay.
Did you adopt both of them?
No, we're doing them separately.
Okay, sorry.
The second one is the sludge work group meeting. Is anybody here on that committee?
I was.
Okay, you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for that meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
No, seconded it.
Yep.
Any discussion about sludge? Any corrections? Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, good. I'm going to change the meeting around here.
Let's see, did Anna vote? Anna, did you vote?
Did I vote?
Yeah, so could you hear, pardon me?
I can hear myself at the same time. Okay, so I approved the minutes from last month, or from March.
For those two meetings? Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, what I'd like to do right now is go under new business and item B, right, Steve?
Yes, where are you?
New business, item B.
Okay, yep.
Okay, you want to talk about that?
Okay, Frank, Hazeltine is with us, he's the owner. Been at that house ever since he was in high school or before, I guess. And he would like to add to it. We get looking at what we need, it's in the shoreline zoning. So we need a shoreline zoning permit, it's in the resource protection shoreline zoning. So, oh boy. So it needs planning board approval. It's really a no-brainer. He's building on a place, an addition to his house that's between his garage and the existing home, not connected, but between them. That area has paved driveway, so he's not making any more impervious soil. And the reason that we're here, basically, you'll notice on the package there's a LOMA, which stands for Letter of Map Amendment from FEMA, and that only excluded the building, the structure, one structure, and so he has to go through it again in order to get the area passed by getting a LOMA. So it would be my recommendation that he meets all the other qualifications. If he gets a LOMA, he doesn't need to get a flood zone permit. So I would recommend that the board consider approving this conditional on receiving a Loma from FEMA, letter of map amendment. How'd I do, Tom?
Good. Just good, Steve.
I've got a question. How long of drawn out process is that getting that letter?
Can take 6 months to a year.
Jeez. And maybe worse right now with the way things are. I looked through it and, you know, basically everything's still above floodplain and everything else, but legally it still has to be done one way or the other.
Yeah, I've checked with the DEP on the sizes and the footprint and all of that. That all is fine. The only problem is that Loma. If you decide not to get a Loma, then you're gonna hire an engineer who's gonna do, elevation certificates and all of that, so.
Excuse me, there is in the package there, Loma is being requested by the same people who did the original one back in the 90s.
Any other questions? I think Steve is recommending that we give tentative approval. Is that what you're doing?
There you go.
This is a pain.
Based on the Loma, right?
Based upon getting
Yeah.
the proper documentation. You comfortable with that?
As long as I can do the construction pending getting that in.
Okay.
Sure.
Alright.
That's what this is
Well-
doing, right?
Don't think you can do the construction until you get the Loma.
No, that's what he just said.
Then I don't agree.
You are getting the shoreline zoning approved, it's conditional on getting that Loma. And I don't know how to get around that.
Well,
I did check with the state floodplain office, Sue, I forget her last name. She's the head one. And she said, no, before we can issue a building permit, we have to have that Loma.
well, that could take a year.
This is the first time you've said that to me, but my hands are tied. I've checked with the state, or with both the DEP and the floodplain office, and that's the direction we get.
I think what my problem is, the original Loma included the whole area where this addition is going. If you look at the letter from the surveyor, he points that out. It's obvious that this is well above the floodplain. This is just a technical requirement, has nothing to do with whether it will or will not be approved. It will be. So I've sold my house where we live away. I'm moving up here to move into the old homestead. I guess, if it had any meaning or was a risk to anyone, I could understand that. But it's not. It's just some kind of a technical requirement that the bureaucrats have established. It has absolutely no bearing or meaning on the risk to building there.
Yeah,
Would you
Don
say the
changed
alternative
this thing wasn't this original Loma. You all have a copy of it.
Well, I can tell you what happened there, Steve, according to the architect. The actual Loma form that goes to FEMA turns out to be a singular, so you can put one point in, one survey point. They submitted their written Loma and all the backup for the whole area, the house, the barn, that surrounding area on the hill. But for purposes of the form, it's the spot, the structure, not structures.
Yeah.
So that's what got approved.
Yeah.
Is that just the house?
Well, I would be glad to go back to the flood zone people and see if we can get something straightened away with them. I still reckon,
Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the point of the flood zone, the Loma and the waiver, is to preclude insurance, flood insurance being required. That's all.
well, yeah,
The shoreline zoning is what impacts the shoreline zone itself. So the Loma, if it ever comes through, for whatever reason, I have to buy flood insurance
no,
with my house insurance.
if the Loma gets approved, you don't have to buy it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So it has, the Loma has nothing, no bearing at all on the construction, other than it will cost me more for insurance if I don't get it.
Also, I don't know if it makes any difference to you or not, but the banks, there's a law that the banks aren't supposed to loan money.
I'm not getting a loan at
Yeah,
all.
I know that, but, down the future way, if you haven't got a Loma, and somebody else wants to sell that as time goes by, that may be, that would be a problem.
Could be an issue, sure.
I would, again, recommend that the board here tonight approve the shoreline zoning conditional on the Loma, and then I will work with you and see if we can find some way around it.
Would you say there's an alternative? You got like a certified benchmark or elevation that would be?
But he'd have to apply for a floodplain permit. And, that requires an engineer to verify elevations and so forth, so.
That's all in the package. If you've seen the.
Yeah, no, I've seen that, but you said that was an alternative for getting a Loma. If it's there, then why wouldn't that work?
Anybody.
We could go for a floodplain permit.
So what does that entail?
Well, it entails an application process, and the elevations have to be made and so forth. Somebody has to certify that the outlets and the electrical panels and the floors and all of that is above the floodplain.
Well, that's already in there.
Okay, well, we didn't apply for a floodplain permit, we applied for a Loma. That was what you and I talked about.
Yeah. But
Now,
that
maybe we'll
information
get it.
is there.
I didn't realize it was gonna take you a year to get that Loma.
Normally, in the past, Loma approvals have taken 6, 8, 9 months, whatever, at least 6 months. And now, the one when my mother had to do this back in the 90s, it was like, I think it was like 8 months.
So how many, you've made the application, right? So how many months are you into it now?
I don't know when they submitted the Loma request.
Right? Yeah.
Recommendations, suggestions?
But you need the Loma right now, as far as you know, to give them a permit.
Either that or we go. Either that or we go the floodplain permit route.
Could we do both concurrently, and whatever happens first?
One's all done, basically. The application for the Loma, he's already submitted that. He just has to get it back.
See, I didn't understand that this could not be approved, that by approving this pending receipt of the Loma, I couldn't start construction until we get the Loma.
That's right,
That makes absolutely no sense to me, Steve, none whatsoever.
that's what
So-
we did anyway.
What's that?
That's what we did, that's what I explained to you,
Well, that isn't what I understood.
well, I'm sorry about that, but I understood clearly that.
I just can't afford not to do this. And we're talking wait until next year to do this construction.
Well, no, if we go the floodplain route, You can do that as soon as you can get engineer or surveyor to do the elevations.
Well, the elevations are right there in the package.
Well, maybe you've got it already then, but there's a process to go through, but it's something that we can do in 2 or 3 weeks or something like that.
Doesn't it have to beat the next planning board?
Well, it won't take planning board approval. I can prove it if we go through the process.
Would the elevations that we have in the packet right now meet the requirements?
I don't know that. I would assume that probably, that it was done by a surveyor. Maybe the only thing the surveyor would have to do is just rewrite the information a little bit so that it fits the floodplain requirements.
Well, they get spot elevations on there and it's stamped. I mean, what else do you need?
Yeah, well, I don't know, I haven't looked at it with
Yeah,
that.
submit that and
Yeah.
see what happens.
Yeah. And then at the end of the project, you have to have an elevation certificate that the floor is a foot above the floodplain. And,
Well, right now
Survey.
it's 9 feet, so it
okay,
isn't gonna change.
yeah, no,
Hasn't changed since the mid-90s either. Sorry, I'm just getting all exasperated.
How much in additional fees would there be to do the floodplain?
well, the permit is, right offhand, I don't know what it is. It's nothing great, it's probably $50 or something like that. The expense might be getting the elevation certificate at the end of the construction.
So, sir, would that be okay with you to go to the limit of flood?
Well, if we can get it done in the next, if we can get it done in the next week or so, it's okay. I'm gonna start construction the end of June.
Yeah, well, I'll get right on it for you.
So therefore, we don't need to take any action.
It's in a resource protection area, so you have to approve it, the shoreline road. But you don't have to make it conditional on getting a loaner, I guess, because he's gonna go the other route. The next step is for me to be able to issue a building permit, and I can't do that until I get either the loaner or the floodplain permit completed. So, one or the other.
So the floodplain permit looks like it's the expedient right now.
What?
The floodplain permit looks like it would be the expedient right now.
Yeah, so that would be the quickest way to go.
And it looks like from this packet that this document exists someplace that you can show it.
I think it is.
Well, it's here. It looks like there's got to be an original someplace because it's on the back page. So if this document can be pulled up and certified.
I can get a certified copy of that. They've already said they'd provide that if I need it.
Yeah. I think I gave you a copy of the state's email or whatever that I got on it. But
No, I didn't get that from, sorry, I didn't get that from the responses they made. Maybe I
so,
just didn't understand it.
the disadvantage is if we go the non-loan, well, the loan will probably going to go through at some point in time. So if you get the floodplain permit right now, the only thing is you may have to just pay flood insurance. Well, you probably will have to. But once the loan goes through, then you wouldn't have to.
So how about
I'm not gonna say anything.
if we make a motion to something to the effect of giving, I hate to use the word tentative, but approval to the request based upon either the loan application or
The floodplain.
the floodplain.
Sounds reasonable.
Make sense? Can you repeat that, please? Everybody understand what the motion is?
I'll make a motion to grant tentative approval.
Don't use tentative.
Okay, you said something about that. Grant approval with, on conditions of either the Loma approval or floodplain permit.
Yep. Okay, makes sense. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who seconded it?
Ron.
Any more discussion? Questions? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. We're done with that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck.
I get right on to it Wednesday, so make it happen as soon as I can.
What's that?
I'll get right on to it Wednesday. I'll get the application emailed out to you. And we'll get right
If
on.
I can get it before then, you'll have it tomorrow.
What's that?
If I can get it before then, you'll have the application tomorrow.
Well, I won't be here again until Wednesday, but that's when I can.
I understand, but I think I can get it off the,
Yeah, you could, yep, you probably can get it off from the main.gov website.
Okay, thank you.
all right, thank you.
Okay, now we'll go back to the regular agenda. And this is a little bit different. Okay.
And,
Thank you, Tom.
It's a little bit different because normally we don't have a public hearing until after we see the proposal. So,
So you can hear the proposal.
let's hear the proposal.
Okay.
And if
So
you,
you're opening the public hearing right now.
okay. So the public hearing is open, so if you would mind introducing yourself. And-
Yep. My name is Cole Peters. I'm with Power Engineers out of Freeport, Maine. And we are working with Pittsfield Solar One LLC with respect to a project on South Main Street. And on the phone is Carter McCann with the parent organization, Sincarfa Solar. And so I think that it would be best if he can introduce his company as well as this project in general. And then what I can do, and Kathy Garrard with me, we can discuss with you the actual project at the site with respect to what occurs at the site as well as your local ordinance.
Okay, so, what's his name?
Carter.
Carter, you there?
I am.
You're on. Go ahead.
All right. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you. My name is Carter McCann. I'm with Sincarfa Solar on behalf here of the entity that will own the solar project, Pittsfield Solar One LLC. The project is on Main Street. It is a 4.95 megawatt solar photovoltaic project. It is situated on just under 20 acres of land, and that includes the fence line, the existing, the new access road that's going to go in. And really the way it's situated is it's on open land right now. There won't be any tree clearing at all for this project, which is great. And this solar project will be constructed with screw or driven pile foundations. The panels then sit on top of those foundations, and water will really hit the panels and run right off them to the ground. So you don't create additional stormwater runoff. It's not like a parking lot because there are rows of these panels. So water can hit the panels, run into the ground, and the ground will absorb it like it did in the pre-solar condition. Background on my company, Sincarfa. We are a developer, owner, and operator of solar projects, which means that we are in really for the whole process. So we're here in front of you today. We've been involved with this project for a couple months, I guess maybe 6 months now, before today. And we hopefully get the permits, all the permits that we need from the town, the state, so the main DEP, and then also there's a utility process that we have to go through to get approved by the utility to interconnect to the grid. From there, we oversee the construction of the potential project, and then after construction, we oversee the operations. A lot of other companies will do one piece of this, so they will either develop it and then sell it once it's been, the permits have been acquired. So they'll sell it to someone else to build it, and then it may even get sold again to someone else to own it. So we don't operate that way. We own these throughout the entire 20-plus year life cycle. And if there's an issue, in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and beyond, you can call us rather than not knowing who to call in the event that someone has a question or a concern or anything's going on at site. To that end, I like to start with the project overview and safety. The safety of it, really cover a lot of the project by talking about the safety of it. It's going to be fenced in, so it'll be a new fence, 7 to 8 feet tall to comply with electric code. The panels are photovoltaic and they're made of polysilicon. So that means there's no harmful materials or chemicals in the panels. They're benign. You could chew on this stuff and it's not going to poison you. I don't recommend it because it's sharp, but there's nothing to leach into the groundwater, even the panels or the inverters, which are the next piece of equipment I'll talk about, that convert the power from DC current, which is what the panels create, to AC current. Those create a little bit of noise. They're about the size of a window air conditioning unit, and they'll be dispersed throughout the site. I think there'll be about 40 of them dispersed throughout the property. From there, you have transformers, which step up the voltage from the site voltage to meet the grid voltage, because the grid voltage is obviously higher than what we're going to be generating on the site. The transformers don't have any harmful chemicals or oils in them either. It's all mineral oil based, so again, if anything did leak, which we haven't had, but if anything did leak, it wouldn't contaminate the ground with the rainwater. Onto the operation. We monitor this remotely, so we can see if there's dips or drops in production versus what we're expecting on a sunny day or a not so sunny day. And if something does go offline, we can dispatch someone to go and give it a look to see what's going on. It would also send an alarm to us and the fire department if something was wrong. So if something was on fire, we could set up alerts to alert everybody who needs to know that they need to get out there and get eyes on it. We do have cameras that we put on site. We always position them in a way where they're not looking towards neighboring residences or businesses. We really just want them there for kind of what I just spoke to, and security as well. We've only had 2 break-ins over 10 years, and they stole a panel or 2, but that was actually during construction. But the cameras are great because we can see, okay, is there snow on the panels? Is the grass getting really high? And it's also good for safety when we have folks on site doing maintenance or work on the transformers and things. You always want a second set of eyes there. Generally, the technicians don't work alone, but in the event they do, it's always good to have a camera on them. Maintenance, to that end, we will do maintenance twice a year, scheduled maintenance, to go and check all the equipment. So there won't really be much traffic impact outside of the construction phase. And by the way, the construction phase is scheduled for 4 to 6 months once it gets going. So that's really the extent of the time that you'll have cars, delivery trucks, that kind of thing. After that, it's only really twice a year for solar maintenance, twice a year for mowing, and then if there is unexpected maintenance, like if a piece of equipment goes down, we would also roll the truck. Last thing on safety, there will be an emergency shut-off right by the gate. So if something did go wrong and the fire department wanted to just shut the whole thing down, there's a switch that they can throw to do so. which is always good. It's a hard off switch. So the equipment would just get powered down and not have any current. Next, I will talk about what we intend to do with the power of this project. The intent here is to be a community solar project. And what community solar means is residents of Pittsfield, or really other towns, but we always give priority to the town where the project is located, can purchase credits from this project that will offset their CMP bill. So say your utility bill is $100 a month, you can buy credits from us at a discount to their face value, so say for $90. So you pay up $90, you get $100 of credit against your utility bill, and then you just wouldn't pay CMP that $100. You would have only paid us $90. So I can get into that a little bit. But, community solar is great for people who can't get solar on their roof. So a lot of roofs just aren't oriented to get savings from solar on their own house. Community solar basically lets you sign a contract to buy credits from a site down the road in the next town over to realize savings you might not otherwise be able to get. The last thing I'll talk about is a good transition back to coal is the wetlands. So the site here, it's funny in the regard, there are wetlands on site. We did file with the DEP, and they are reviewing our wetlands impact. It's a farm. It was a farm before, but because of some of the drainage infrastructure, we think it collapsed and there's a lot of standing water. We are going to put some posts into those areas that are wet, but all of the pads and impervious area we're going to keep out of the wetlands, except I believe in one crossing area where we're going to have a rock sandwich where the water can still flow underneath the road back and forth. But we try to avoid the wetlands impact as much as we could. There's a resource protection area off to the west end of the site, which we stayed away from as much as we could. So I think with that, I'll hand it back to Cole, and he can tell you a little bit more about that and the rest of the site.
Thank you, Carter. You folks here, it's your call, but I see the seats are at this location. And if you would wish to come up and sit there and see the illustration, that would be an option. But I can move this forward a little bit, and I'll stand there if it goes off. So this is the site, and this illustration, by the way, is in your booklet. And I would say that the figures that could help you understand the project are essentially in the second half of the booklet. And they would begin with the assessor's map and in terms of where the property is located. This would be South Main Street. The town center is in that direction on the map. This is Farnham Brook. Essentially, that's the westerly property line. And the color scheme that you see here, the orange dots along Main Street are existing utility poles owned by CMP and how they distribute power throughout the community. There's another transmission line at the rear of the property, and that's also kind of coincides with the back edge of the field. Behind the transmission line is woods. The blue line, as I mentioned, is Farnham Brook. This purple line in the vicinity of the site, that is the 100-year floodplain. The site outlined in yellow is the security fence, the limit of work. It's well outside of the floodplain. There's actually a flat area in this location, and then a steep rise up to where the farmhouses and the outbuildings are here in gray. Another feature of interest on your local ordinance is nearby fire hydrants. There's one at this location, this red dot. another one here, I believe it's called Stinson Street, near the Apex gas station. The yellow is the limit of work. That's where the security fence will be. The entrance would be along the side of the storage units. And so coming back into the site, it's fenced around the perimeter. As Carter mentioned, there are wetlands on the property, and they would be outlined here in green. We're in that ridge, steep hill that I mentioned, is in this location, a low area along Farnham Brook, and then another area of wetland up in this part of the site. And so some of the figures that help illustrate that, this would be, it's referred to as sheet 2, and we'll be looking at a more detailed version of this. It's sort of a blow up of this area, if you will. But in terms of the dimensions, there's a bar scale here that helps you understand how big the site is. And in effect, it's around about 300 feet off of Main Street in this vicinity here. So that's sort of an overview of the site. And I guess in terms of getting a better understanding of the lay of the land, in your booklet is a colored illustration of the wetlands map, and outlined in green are these areas here. That may seem like a lot of wetlands. It's an agricultural field, and there's a different types of wetlands. I'm a wetland scientist, and very common ones we know of might be a marsh. Sort of think of it as cattail, or taller grassy vegetation, if I can use that word. Swamp would be wooded, forested, bogs, quaking mat bounces on it. But another type of wetland is called a meadow. I think that's best fit for this area. It's a mown hay field, cut on a regular basis, and has been cut for a long time in that fashion. In terms of how wetlands are identified, multi-parameter method, 3 parameters. The hydrology, the water is there, that's the driving force. The plants adapt to it. There are certain species that are indicative of wetlands. For example, a tree, red oak, is not a wetland plant. Red maples are, and that's true for various shrubs. Alders are. Beaked hazelnut is not. Water lilies, of course, are, but various upland grasses and herbaceous species are not. So the point I'm trying to make is you take a look at the vegetation and whether it's indicative or not of wetland, take that into account, whether there's a presence of hydrology or water. That presence also influences the soil over time. It tends to lose its color. It's a gray cast to it, as an example, or it may be peaty. But this is an agricultural field and has been that way for a long time. With respect to the DEP and the permitting necessary for this, we've actually also, in advance of submitting the permit to the town of Pittsfield, submitted permits to the DEP as well as the Corps of Engineers for the wetlands. It's referred to as a Tier 3 permit application. And I spoke with DEP today. There's been a big influx of permit applications for solar projects. They're in the process of reviewing it, but they have not yet issued a permit. Another permit from the DEP, which we do have though, is called a stormwater permit, a stormwater PBR, permit by rule. And this map set was submitted as part of that. And that permit is in hand and has been approved. One part of the map set is an entire page of erosion control measures. It 2 sheets behind this, and it simply lists the best management practices that will be used during this construction. And as Carter mentioned, due to the nature of the site and the proposed work, it's distant from Farnham Brook. This area is isolated. It's flat. The construction that will take place, we'll look at it here in a moment, but it's essentially limited to a narrow gravel road. So that's sort of an overview of the existing conditions. If there are any questions about the illustrations in the map packet, I'd be happy to answer them now.
So if you go back to the color picture, the area that's going to be developed is the brown.
The area that's going to be developed is within the yellow on this map.
Okay, but on this one, it's going to be...
Okay, I follow you now. I understand.
Both brown and green.
Yes.
But it's the right hand.
To the east of, basically from the grade that comes up from the low area, that side hill coming up all the way up through.
Yeah. I understand your question now. Yes, it is the brown area, and for a point of reference, the storage buildings are these 3 or 4 stripes. That would be located right here, and the farm, the outbuildings are in this area. So, and you can see those, and it's everything to the east.
So nothing in the area that says wet one.
Sorry?
Nothing in the area that says wet one.
No, that's
correct. That's correct. It would be in the area of what's called wet 2. And, you know, it slowly drains in this direction, but not directly into Farnham Brook, as this area would when the water is at high stage.
one of the biggest reasons that's wet is storm drainage from Pittsfield town roads and things come in behind CN Brown area.
Okay.
And make that quite wetter. I farmed that for 20 some odd years, so I'm
Okay.
familiar with the land.
Okay.
If that stormwater was diverted, it would change drastically.
Okay.
That's basically the wettest area in that upper lands right behind CN Brown area.
Yes. So, any more questions about the site property?
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I wasn't sure, I know we're in a public hearing, but, so I am here representing Carmichael Properties, actually, and we had one little thing about your map that you sent us that we were not happy with, and that's your pink line here.
Okay.
And our wire fence, our deed includes up to the wire fence, so if you guys can fix that, we're happy with it.
Okay. We can,
That was the only thing that we had an issue with, because, you know, obviously we don't want to lose even a little chunk of our property.
sure. Okay, I will,
And if you need a copy of that, you can contact us, and I have the deed, I pulled it out to make sure.
Okay, if you can provide us with your contact information, we'll work with you to, yes.
And I did have another question. How loud are the converters, the noise?
Good question.
Because, you know, we have people who rent from us there, and there is a house right next to us as well.
I think Carter spoke to that. I'm sure he can answer your question again.
Okay.
I did not get the impression they were particularly loud, but Carter?
Yeah, of course. About the thing with the window air conditioning unit, which I have running from me 15 feet away, and I can barely hear it in my house. So they used to be, 5-10 years ago, they used to be much bigger and louder and buzzier, but now that they're smaller, it's really distributed architecture where you'll have about 40 of them across the site. So because of that, they're both not right at the property line, like they're not at the edge of the site, they're kind of distributed throughout the site, and they're also much quieter. So, think about the air conditioning units that you hear from a house 30, 40 20 feet away, you probably won't even hear it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have a question.
Carter, if I may ask a question on that, with regards to wildlife, if there were 40 machines going at one time, does that interrupt anything that may be nesting or hunting in the area?
If anything, we've seen nests in them and on them. No. At the fence line, no, because it's really imperceptible at the fence line. We've never, it's never been devoid of life on any of our sites. If anything, the birds like going under the panels because they actually get some protection from some of the bigger birds. And we also, one thing that I didn't mention for the wildlife, we raised the bottom of the fence 6 to 8 inches, something like that, so you can get underneath. But no, I mean, I've never seen any reports or seen anything firsthand that suggests these things deter wildlife. Short of, I mean, it's a big fenced area, so deer and things like that would go around it other than through it. But other than that, no.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I'd like to look at map number 2. Should I give you the sign in before you leave?
Oh, I sure can.
The site map?
Map 2, yeah. Okay. This is the resource protection area here. That dark line and everything that way of it. And I noticed that you have solar panels actually inside it here.
Yes.
And that's not allowed in that resource.
Okay, yes, I will speak to that before I
If
turn.
that goes away,
Yeah.
we don't need a shoreline zoning permit.
Okay.
If it stays, we do, it wouldn't get approved.
Yeah, I will speak to that before I have Kathy. Yes. What Steve pointed out was the location of the resource protection. And as I mentioned, in your booklet are the various illustrations to help you understand things given our distance here. And so this is the resource protection area, this bold line. Here's a blow up of that, and you have a small version of the entire town map in your book. So that's, and the area Steve pointed out was right in this vicinity here. And as I mentioned, the scale is different between the two, and this is an enlargement, and so here's the area Steve referred to. And indeed, there's, I think, 3 or 4 segments of panel there. And speaking with, a thing to be understood is that the fence can be moved, considering the width of this line, the 250 feet, if we're taking it from the middle of the zone down here, it, I think, just nicks maybe 2 or 3 panels at the most, and that corner segment of fence. But if you look at the panels, there's a space here in the back row, a space in the row in front of that, and they can be shifted to stay out of that area, and the fence could be pulled in that direction as well. So that's, to this specific location, but I'll let Kathy speak in more detail.
Thank you.
Yes.
But just so everybody knows, I'd asked Cole to bring a print to this for approval that showed those gone.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like we have that.
Yeah. It just, what we could, you indeed did make that request, Steve, and it's just what we could do in the time that has passed since.
Hello all, my name is Kathy Gerard. I'm just going to take a few minutes and talk a little bit more about the actual site. This is the map 2 of 5. And as Cole said, it is a blow-up of this one, so now we're actually looking at where the solar panels will be right here on the site. I'm going to start not from the road, but I'm going to start from the panels themselves. So you can see them here represented as just a series of long rectangles. And from the road, you will see the back of them because they'll be oriented to the south, which is in this direction. And as Cole mentioned, there is a nice natural border that exists. It's a fairly thick tree line with an existing power line with utility poles and wires, so that's the back border. From the road, you will see the back of the panels. As Carter said, there will be scattered inverters, about 40 of them. As the energy is collected, it is brought into this underground conduit towards the top of the site here, and then transported up to the power on Main Street via some new utility poles. Right now this shows 6 or I think it shows 7. There may be 6, there may be 8, but those poles will be new on that 15 wide gravel road. The little pink areas here are the pads where the transformers will be, and that's what steps up the power to get it into the same rating as the distribution here. What differs on this plan from what you have is a new proposed tree buffer that would be about 480 feet in length in this top segment here. This is the city ground property and then a couple of residential properties here. So that would be proposed row of arborvitaes to just provide some buffering and screening for this area here. Orange is existing. Let's see if I missed anything.
Is that along the fence line or inside of the fence line, the tree buffer?
It's outside
Outside
of
the fence line.
it's outside of the security fence.
Okay, right.
It's on the property, and therefore, based on your comment earlier, this would be the property line as it was understood. And so, that, the width of my finger is 30 feet.
Okay.
And so, I'm going to say it's approximately another 30 feet back yet.
Okay.
Approximately 60 feet from, so it's on one of the project sites.
Is that where you are?
No, we're the one right here, you know, see where it kind of comes as an L there. That L-shaped property, that's us. Carmichael Properties.
Okay.
I did mention the gate. The gate is right here at the juncture of the end of the gravel road where the underground conduit becomes overhead. So the gate would not, immediately visible from the road. It is further down here into the site. And you can see this legend at the bottom. This square has the property boundary area, the project area, and then the wetland impacts right here in an easy to read table.
I guess the other point I would make about this illustration is you see some circles. It'd be easier to see on your plans. And those are the key to what's referred to as the detail page. And, they just illustrate some of the things that Kathy has been describing. For instance, here in this top corner is an illustration of what the solar arrays would look like. And Kathy mentioned the equipment pad. And Carter, in the course of his talk, speaking, he referred to what's called a rock sandwich. And that's actually a term of Dave Roque. He's a state soil scientist. And he's developed this idea that in areas that are wet, it's best to have sort of a put down geofabric on top of the existing vegetation, then put crushed rock on top of that, coarse, and it allows passage of water through rather than a culvert. And so this is the location of where that rock sandwich would be. You would not perceive it in terms of a typical road surface necessarily, but it does allow water to pass through without being concerned about culverts blocking up.
Any questions?
Are there any issues or concerns with operation at the airport? Is that located right there?
That will be over here.
Right.
And I think Carter, we talked to Carter about that today, and I will let him speak to that.
Yeah, because that is right on the flight path.
Yeah, the runway alignment, this is the property line, and McCarthy Street, I think, is over here.
That's the end of the abandoned runway.
Yeah, and its orientation is essentially parallel to this sideline. So it's coming in like this.
Right, but when you approach an airport, you can pass over at midfield.
Yep.
At 1,500 feet, you'd be passing right over that.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's any issue with.
Yeah, I will let him speak to that. Yeah.
Carter, did you get that?
Yeah, I think it was a question about the airport and organization. So what we do there is we reach out to the FAA and we basically say, here it is, here's what we're proposing. What do you think, what do you want us to do? And the two main things that we've done, is we're putting utility poles there for CMP to tie into it. So we'll get permits usually for each of those utility poles. If you think about it, that's really a non-issue. It's just kind of procedural. There's other utility poles in the area, so that's not the problem. But they may ask us to do a glint and glare analysis.
Yeah, that's good concern.
If you think about it, you have field of glass and polysilicon or glare. On one project, I think there was a potential where they might have wanted us to. These things are oriented tree south. That's how you get the most energy production out of them. Just in the northern hemisphere, because the sun is in the south, that's just most efficient. They might ask us to change the orientation. So if we find in our glare analysis, and they find that we aren't producing any glare that would impact the airport, we might have to change it 5, 10 degrees. So instead of 0 degrees true south, you might go 5 or 10 degrees. The last kind of thought on this is they really don't produce much glare because if you think about it, they're designed to absorb the sun. So they're dark, they're black. They do have a glass top sheet, so it's theoretically possible to get it, shining off of it. But it's not really a major concern. And a lot of airports even have solar on their properties, so it's pretty commonplace, and we're basically like the FAA. They'll tell us what they want us to do, whether it's rearrange it or just get permits for what we're showing.
So, let's say this was approved and construction starts. How long?
About 4 to 6 months for construction, and then we're at the mercy of the utility for when their schedule allows us to be interconnected to the grid. Hopefully it's right at the end of that 4 to 6 months, but I cannot speak for them. We've seen it be up to a year afterwards before we're producing energy.
What happens after 20 years? Or 25 years?
Good question.
Can you repeat it?
What happens after 20 years?
Great question. The simplest way to answer is either we keep operating, and because these panels are warranted to produce at 80% of their year 1 rating in year 20, so you have a power plant that's 80% of what it was today, or we decommission it. So we'll post a decommissioning bond with the landowner, potentially the town, that, well, first we have the responsibility under our lease to remove it. So with the landowner, we have to remove it and return it to free solar. solar condition. Just to give everyone security, in case we go away for one reason or another, we'll post a bond. And that bond will ensure that there's money to remove the system should we not fulfill our obligation.
And that happens right in the beginning of the project?
Yep, annually renewing bond, and we'll pay for it every single year.
And that adjusts as the years go by. I mean, $1 today is not the same as 2040 or whatever.
Yeah, the way, you can do it one of two ways. Either we can increase the value every year, or we can say, okay, it's gonna cost $30,000 if you were to commission this today, then just adjust that for inflation through 20 years, and maybe that number then becomes 45 or 50,000. We've done it both ways.
Hard to describe the highlights, but there's a decommissioning plan in the very back of the booklet. That's the last 4 pages or so.
In that decommissioning, it's saying it's bringing it back to pre-existing conditions, but it isn't in there because essentially nothing below ground level is being removed. As far as the post or screw post for the units or underground, that's what in here it's stating that it's only being brought back to ground level, which is not pre-existing conditions. At that point, it could not be conventionally farmed at that point again.
Yeah, we just dealt with this on another farmland site, and we adjusted the plan, which we could do here as well, to remove the posts entirely. Because it says right now we cut them off at grade, which we do or can do on sites that were formerly forested. And then we cut them at grade as long as the landowner's okay with that. But because this was a farm, in recent history, we could just remove them completely rather than cutting them off. The underground cables, that particular landowner wasn't so worried about it because they are not toxic and they're a little deeper, so that wouldn't affect farming, but the posts would. So we can adjust the plan here to remove those posts.
Mo, you want to ask anything?
Why is this labeled Solar One? Are there plans for other fields as well?
Good question, but no. In some other towns where there's enough land to do 2 next to each other, we've done 1 and 2. It's just kind of become our naming nomenclature. The first one in the town is 1, but there are no other plans for us to do a 2 here.
Okay, and another question, if I could, Syncarbra is out of New York City, correct?
Yeah,
How
that's
does
where the
that-
offices are based.
Okay, but are there satellite sections of Syncarbra that are in Maine, based in Maine?
So
Is
we
it a
have,
Mac company?
yeah, we have projects across the country. We've done most of our work recently in Massachusetts. We are doing a lot of work now in Maine. All of the physical work on site is done by local electricians and local contractors, but we own it, and our office is based out in New York City, and we can operate it remotely, but all of the labor and technicians and things will all be local, including the ongoing operations and maintenance. But yeah, we are off, no one's there right now. I'm home in Connecticut where I grew up. But we have a pretty heavy focus in New England. We do have a couple other projects, one in Arizona, some in New Jersey, one in New York. But it's really focused in New England where most of our work is.
Okay.
So you talked about,
Is there ever,
go ahead,
sorry, Dan.
go ahead, Anna.
I wanted to know more about the 10% monthly savings that may be available. Is there ever a time when, if you sign on for that you're not going to get that 10%, or can you get more or less? I mean, I'm still not sure about that.
Sure. So, are you familiar with net metering? Because that's the program that we would be operating under.
Kind of like a migraine.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the way net metering works is the sites, for every kilowatt hour of energy it produces one net metering credit. Those net metering credits are worth, let's just call it, somewhere between 10 and 15 cents. The way we structure our contract is either a fixed discount to that, so say a penny or two off of that rate, or 10% off. So if it's 10% off, then forever, you're saving exactly 10%. But if you do a penny or two off, then that might be more or less than 10%. In any event, it'll be savings. Like, you would never pay more for the credit than the credit you'd be getting on your bill. You'll never lose money. But the amount around the 10% could float a little bit, just depending on what the utility rates do over time, how much they go up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I do have another question. Property taxes. This will, basically, the property owners are gonna own it, they're leasing it to the company. The property tax is gonna go up because of valuation. And so that's gonna be covered in the lease.
Did you hear that, Carter?
I didn't, I'm sorry. Would you mind repeating it?
The property taxes on this property are gonna go up, so your company is prepared to pay the increase in property taxes on this lease for the term of the contract?
Correct. Yes, we always pay any increase above and beyond what the landowner's paying now.
We gonna go and ask for a TIF after this project's in?
Can't do it.
No?
It's not TIF territory.
Okay.
That's what I was told earlier today.
Is there tax differences or incentives from the state of Maine for putting this in that's gonna change our Pittsfield's tax base?
That I don't have an answer to, but that's a great question.
Because I've been told from other close towns that have these projects that basically the taxable rate that the state reimburses the towns for
Goes down.
Yeah. Even though the tax base goes up.
Is there anybody close by Pittsfield that's got one of these in operation right now? In other words, what I'm asking for is, can we get a reference from somebody?
You're asking for a reference of Sincarfa.
I guess.
Yeah.
A reference for someone who has one of our operational projects?
In Maine.
So we don't have any in Maine right now. This is one of the first 5 that we're permitting in Maine. I can give you references in Massachusetts where we have several that have been operating for several years, but we don't have any operating in Maine right now.
Any other questions? This meeting is a little disjointed, to be honest with you.
This is public hearing, right?
This is public hearing.
The tree line you said you were gonna establish, why does that not go the whole length of the property?
These lots are zoned residential, and this is commercial. And discussing with Steve, it seemed as if the concern for screening, was in the change in zoning from commercial to residential, whereas this area is identified as highway commercial now.
only reason I bring that up, are you familiar with the other solar farm here in our town?
Yes, indeed. I was there last week.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
I said it's a beautiful view. You know that yellow house across the street with the porch? It's a beautiful view.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, from that porch. Okay. And that's what somebody's gonna have to drive down the road and see. And there's a lot of townspeople in Pittsfield, not just myself. I'm the guy that sits on that porch. Okay? But I can tell you, there's a lot of people that make comments about it. It's an eyesore. They all are. I would suggest, if you're gonna do that project, hide it. People don't wanna see it, okay? And what does it cost? You know, buy some more softwood trees and let them grow up here so people don't have to see it. If we were to go into the North Main woods, when they do logging and clear cuts, okay? That's what people complain about, right? They complain about the clear cuts, and it's an eyesore. And what do we tell the loggers? Leave a buffer so people don't see it. But we turn around and do this the other side, but it's doing exactly the same thing. Okay? But they think, well, this is green power. We're doing something here for the environment. Well, people still, I believe at some place, we're gonna have to go through a package here. It's gonna talk about whether it's appealing to the eye and so forth. Am I right? There, Jan?
Well, in the resource protection area, limits doing something like that, but in the commercial zone, otherwise, no.
Okay. Anyways, that's a suggestion though, that would make it more appealing to probably a lot more townsfolk. Yeah.
To comment on that just a little bit more, that's why I had to put a buffer zone in where the commercial property meets the residential property. That requires
Right.
a buffer zone.
But what I'm suggesting is, Steve, they want to do it and be good neighbors. It doesn't cost that much money to plant a few extra trees. And to consider yourself good neighbors in the community.
And the view is gonna be different.
Right.
You're looking at the
Right.
the southward facing side, essentially, and everything from Main Street, you're gonna be looking at the back side, more likely.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Not saying it's better or worse, it is a different view.
yeah. I mean, as I understand it, you're looking at it this way. And
Right.
as you're saying, it's gonna be looking at it this way.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
I have concerns, I'm in a budding landowner, I'm on the other side of Farnham Brook, that if those are rotated, to the southwest maybe, to comply with any area, that will affect me. That, I have concerns with that. Then I'd like to see a buffer along, Farnham Brook. Right now, I don't have a problem if they're facing due south, but if they start turning them.
I don't know though, the one down the brook, because they're not gonna be down that far.
I know, but
Height-wise.
from a shot, I can walk right down and
Right.
see that whole thing.
But I thought you meant as far as glare,
Well, yeah.
there'd have to be tall trees.
That's why that orientation is probably fine. But if I start rotating and pointing southwest, I'm not concerned with that.
Because it's fairly easy to put trees along the north side, because it's not gonna block any of the reflected sunlight that you want. On the south side, you have to be back, or you're gonna want to be back quite a ways.
But you're saying that, this yellow's the outline of the project.
Right.
Here's Farnham Brook.
Right.
You're saying you're over here somewhere.
Yeah, I have the next 50 acres over on the other side. Okay. And I've got that shop up on the hill there that overlooks all that.
Okay.
Which, right now, that's no problem. I support what you're doing there. But
Yeah.
I just don't know if they turn that, rotation a little bit, if that's going to affect anything, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just a concern.
Okay, so I think they said, or somebody said that, the grass gets cut twice a year?
Yeah.
And no pesticides are used?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that part.
No pesticides are used in the area?
That's,
think we talked about the dismantling a little bit. I want to go back to the issue though about, okay, so this is going to potentially, at least for a while, this has the potential to increase the value of the town, right? Maybe
Technically, it'll increase the taxable base in town,
in town.
but we're not sure on how the state's gonna.
Well, and that's where I want to go. I mean, is there any place where that's been seen as where that's happened? Because the state is, as all places are right now, you know, towns are really struggling and states are really struggling with money. And, you know, I guess the question is this the right time to do this?
I understand, you know, the reasons for your question. And, you know, as Carter explained, this and 4 other projects would be the first in Maine. So it would be hard for them to answer that question.
Right.
However, you know, as you've mentioned, you know, there's another operation right here in town. And as I understand it, it's the biggest in the state. And you know, it's simply, might that be a means to answer the question that you're asking?
No, it's not.
Okay.
We don't get the information that we're looking for off that project.
Okay. Okay, I just didn't know. You know, Steve brought it to my attention, I went to see it, and I just don't know, so.
Steve, I may have an answer, I just want to make sure I heard the question correctly. Are you wondering if now is the right time to maximize the taxable revenue that you would get from a solar project?
No. We're wondering basically on how the state's looking at our Pittsfield's taxable base. So the tax base will rise, but we're not sure on how the state's going to look at it as far as reimbursement to the town for other way the state's looking at it as a taxable base on these solar projects.
I see.
How's that worked out?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one.
Is it a net?
I can just, and I'm sorry, it's not the answer to that, but for taxes from the project, one thing that we do is we enter pilots, payment in lieu of taxes, so the number is known for the duration of the project. So we can come to an agreement with the town on what that amount is, and then it doesn't move over time, just so you have some certainty of the revenue that you'll get from the project.
So more revenue coming in from this project, taxable revenue, is offset by state funding less, is that what you're saying?
That's
You're right.
correct.
Because
So is that
that's what I was told
a
from
net zero type of thing?
From town of Palmyra. They've looked into it pretty deeply because of some other projects looking at there, and I was told that basically they're gonna have less funding available to the town
From the state.
from the state.
From the state.
Even though the state, well, because basically the state's gonna have a taxable valuation of the town,
Right.
but they're gonna discount what they reimburse, taking that project back out of it. So they basically, what they're being reimbursed for a school project and things of that sort are quite a bit different from what the tax base is. This is what I've been told by others from another town.
Something we need to know, isn't it?
Pardon?
That's something we need to know, isn't it?
I think that there should be some kind of, Ron, you're awfully quiet tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tax question is a good question. I'd be interested on the scale of that, right? Like if we're talking, you know, we get 10,000, 15,000 less from the state. I mean, that's not desirable, but it's certainly not going to bankrupt the town. But if we're talking north of that significantly, then I would be significantly concerned. In terms of the visual, I think that the addition of the tree line is great, between the commercial and the residential. I think that's fantastic, and I'm really happy that you guys would be willing to take that step. If it's possible to expand that tree line, I think that would be desirable, because as has been expressed, some people have an issue with that site, and it is what it is. Yeah, that's all I have. I would want to see what the FAA has to say, just to make sure that there's going to be no disruption, because the airport is a significant part of our town, and that's something we need to make sure of. And other than that, I have no concerns.
I think with this site here, the angle the panels are facing leaves a good opportunity for, a tree line without affecting, your project as far as, full sunlight.
Causing shade.
Compared to other projects that, that basically would be in direct contrast with the light, with the sunlight.
And I think the addition of more trees is, in the long run, desirable, because even though the long-term environmental benefit of having more solar energy produced is a net positive, we are essentially removing green space here off the map. So anything we can do to put green space back on the map by the addition of more trees, I'm in favor of. I also like the suggestion to remove the posts completely as opposed to just cut them off. If they'd be willing to do that, I'd be much happier.
Mm-hmm. What is the angle of that panel? What do they set at? Compared to the ground? Like 30, 35 degrees or something? I don't know if that's the scale or would it be cut wrong there,
Carter, the question is, the inclination of the panel shown in the detail. And, of course, if we could do a hypotenuse and the geometry of it, but do you have any idea what the inclination of the panel is as it's shown, or what would be typical?
Sure, you can just tilt up the panel. They're about the front edge, about 2 to 3 feet off the ground. And then it's at a tilt of somewhere between 20 and 30 degrees. I think this is shown at 25. And then the high edge of the panel is about 8 to 10 feet off the ground.
Is that standard on the field like Maine? Is that type of, is it similar to the one out in West Pittsfield? You don't know. I don't know.
I would think it would probably be the same.
I think it's probably the
latitude,
same.
Yeah, because basically the further south you would move this, the flatter they would tend to be.
Right. Yes.
How would we get an answer to that question about the taxes? Would we call the state?
Yeah.
How long will it take to get that, do you think?
Well, probably gonna be a while.
All depends how likely they are to want to talk with you.
But I think that's a legitimate question. It's
What was that question, please?
how long would it take to get some information back from the state in terms of what the impact would be?
The tax.
The tax.
Okay.
This is maybe anecdotal, but because the state is pushing solar and pushing green energy, practically I'd be surprised if they gave less money if a town hosted a solar project, but that's just intuition, I agree we'd have to get the answer from the state.
Well, funny you should mention that, because somebody said that to me today. Now, they happen to be in the solar business, so that they're really trying to push it, so they're giving some incentives. But
I would just like to say that as far as aesthetics go, I think that you can look at something enough and eventually you need to see it, or you can look at something and say, wow, what a great progressive town this is, and a town that cares about its environment. I think that is far more important than whether you think something is hideous, for what it's offering. I think it's a good move.
Well, environment is in the eye of the beholder.
I have a statement that I'd make here, but I think this is long, so I think we'll just not say anything.
I always wanted that.
So.
Jan, I think you're right on target with this tax thing, because as I recall, that project out on West Pittsfield, new information has come out recently where there's a TIF or something associated with that. And I think it was actually to the benefit of the town to provide them with a TIF. Because by doing so, the way I understood it was, and we need to go back and check up on this, is that by doing the TIF, it somehow lowered or kept the town's valuation where it was prior to the project.
Okay.
If they would have not given the TIF, then that property, as it was improved, would have been valuated at a much greater valuation, and the town would have lost a lot of money from the state. That's how I seem to recall that, but we should go back and check up on that and verify it.
Well, and like I said, I think that this particular site is not TIF eligible because it is what? It's,
because of the zoning.
because of the zoning.
But what I'm saying here is, because you couldn't give them a TIF, it sounds like it would hurt the town more. The
Well,
TIF actually saved the town as far as money from the state.
Possibly.
Okay? So.
Okay, so,
We still have to do a site plan review tonight?
well, that was my next question. I think, there's a lot of questions still to be answered. There's 20 pages of this thing right here. Steve has highlighted some particular areas.
Well, in your,
Yeah.
the slow copier,
On this area, where he's got some concerns, and I think,
but anyway, the things that are in there, whether they're big highlighting them, maybe makes them a little harder, a little easier to see. But you should go through and check it, see if you want to require the things that I suggested. And of course, Cole has had this for 2 weeks, and to me, there's just too many questions for us to do anything tonight. I mean, the plans need to be changed to keep that stuff out of the resource protection area. We don't want to sign that plan there with the wrong, with those panels in the resource protection area. We got the airport issue. We got the bond, and I'm wondering if we should have maybe the town attorney look at that bond and make recommendations for the decommissioning bond. Then we got to address the structures being cut off at the ground level, but that seems it would almost ruin the field for farming if those were cut off and left in the ground. They're bound to work their way out. And then the state tax thing, and just a few notes that I made here that seems like there's an awful lot yet to be resolved.
Could those issues be resolved by our next meeting?
well, and
I hear that you have questions, and, it's apparent that it's necessary to go beyond this room this evening to get some of those addressed. Some of the items that Steve just went through, though, one example being the removal of the foundations. I would believe that could be a condition of your permit, that they must be removed. So what I'm trying to do is isolate that list, and also, I think more importantly, understand from you, the process here in light of sort of the unusual situation. And you mentioned earlier that we're having a public hearing. I think the agenda would say that what would be next would be to close the public hearing and then go through with the next phase of this evening. And so, what would be the practice of the board, I guess? Typically, I think there's an informal meeting, but it was decided to converge all these things. But, and I think in an informal meeting, there would be this exchange. I guess if you could just outline where you think it might go next, that would be helpful for us.
What I'm going to suggest is that, at least in my particular situation, this kind of came as a pretty big surprise. Okay.
It came as a big surprise?
Right. And, we didn't have a lot of time to really look over the material here. And like you just described, we usually have an informal meeting where a lot of these kinds of things would get hashed out. And then we actually bring it back to going through the document here, which takes a minute or two, and make some final corrections, have a different kind of a forum than where we open up, and hopefully we can get some, if there are some people other than the neighbor right there, to talk about some of the issues and then vote on it. So I guess what I would like to do is postpone action, ask the board to take a look at here any concerns. I have a list also that Steve has given me. I would be happy, or Steve would be happy, to sit down. If you have a copy of this, to highlight those by Friday of this week, and then come back with then we could do the actual meeting where we would approve this.
Okay, I do believe that I emailed that to you with the highlights already in it.
I'm
So as long as you've got it.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm not really leaning toward approving this tonight unless you guys want to do something different.
Well, we spent an hour, go down through, because most of these items are straightforward. If he just wants to get that off his list and then concentrate on the ones, it's a pretty big item there, the taxes, the FAA, and all that other stuff.
And my recollection, and indeed, what Steve provided me, this a week or so ago, as he mentioned, and he highlighted particular areas that he thought were in need of attention. One example being the screening, and there were other items. I think there was a request for some financial information, and that has been provided too. I understand, in particular, the responses I provided, you would want to hear more about or would like to talk about. But then there are other topics that have come up this evening that were not on Steve's list, namely FAA and the like. So I think there are things we can accomplish this evening that we can try to do, but there are other things that clearly we'll need to come back with and see you again. So
yeah, I recommend close the public hearing and just start going down through this list. I've been on both sides. I've been up there and I've been over here, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Nice to get some.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Well, let's see if she has any more questions before we close the floor.
Nope, my big thing was our property line and the noise.
Is there any way to hear an example of these inverters? Is there anywhere in any town that may have something similar?
Can you hear the ones out in West Pittsfield?
I avoid that place like the plague.
You live across from it.
Well, I mean, you live fairly near.
That actually has its own substation,
Okay,
okay, and it's.
so it's different then.
It's way out of the power field, so.
Okay, well, the reality is, I don't think we're gonna approve this.
Right, let's go down to, we'll start going down through the list and.
Is that
Can we,
okay with
can we get an
everybody?
answer to
Go ahead,
that question now?
his answer.
Oh. I have an air conditioner in my window. If you don't know, I just-
Yeah, but you're talking 40 air conditioners.
Oh, okay.
I hear your point. And Carter, I think you can see me on the screen. The gentleman asked, in terms of the sound of the inverters, the reference that has been given sounds like a window air conditioner. He's raised the question that there could be 40 or so. And as to how that would be, they would be dispersed throughout this area. So is there any more that you can add, Carter, that would speak to the potential sound of these inverters?
Yeah, sure. So there's 40 or so, and the site's about 20 acres. So you're at 2 per acre. Again, there's been a lot of tests done with decibel readings at the edge of these solar sites, and it doesn't pick up anything meaningful. What I can do, though, I can pull the spec sheets of the equipment, and I can send it to Steve and the board, and whomever is asking the question, and it'll list the decibel level on there, maximum noise when you're 5 or 10 feet away, and then you can compare that to other things, you know, a car engine,
Yep.
keep using the air conditioning unit. So I can pull that and it'll give you an exact decibel level to give you a frame of reference.
Yeah, that would be good. Thank you, that was all I had.
One thing I could add to that is I've been inspecting a septic system that's right next door to those panels out there on the Powers Road or Route 2. And I was doing something else, so I didn't actually go like this to see if I could hear anything. My point is, though, I didn't notice anything, and I was probably within 100 feet of them.
So if we start going through this, Steve, do we want to start at section 8?
I'm sorry?
If we start going through this, do we want to start at section 8?
Okay.
Do we close the meeting first?
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Can you say something? I think the first part of this,
It opens hard.
is section 8, I think that's usually where we start,
Or on page 5.
on page 5.
Well, one of the things just before section 8 is that the board needs to determine whether they have a technical fees required or not. Do we want an engineering firm to look at this, or do an attorney to look at the bond? That would probably be something that area would address.
I guess I would have more concerns with the bond than the technical part of it.
Yeah, whatever.
You know, we've dealt with some of the technical in the past.
Yeah, the bond is what I really meant, was really
Right.
concerned about.
So do you want to, we can add that here and then put it in the proper spot if there's a place farther down the list.
Well, you know, if we were going to require an attorney look at it, that's what I would call the technical fee.
Okay.
We should address that maybe. It would have to be paid by the applicant.
So that would be under the end of section 7. So section 8.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch up with where you were. I have the handout.
Page 5.
That you're looking at.
Page 5.
Page 5. Okay?
I think we want to have the town's attorney look at the bond,
Okay.
okay? And get a recommendation from them. Okay, then moving along, on page 6, under general information. Okay, I think, well, Steve had put in a note here under 8.1B. Buffers and types proposed by the applicant should be shown on the plan submitted. That could be something in addition to bring the drawings up to the final drawing. Because you said there are some things that are not correct on these, right?
Yes, what is displayed this evening is different than what you've received. And the difference being that where the vegetation was proposed.
But I think there's some other ones too. So which is correct, that or this?
Neither one at the moment.
Neither one at the moment is correct.
Because on that one up there, we have that black dotted line that needs to be, the panels in that area need to be moved. Correct, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and as far as the buffer goes, cedar trees don't grow very fast or very tall. Before they make a buffer so you can't see those panels, I'll probably be long gone.
Well, I mean, I believe, in speaking with you relative to this not being correct, it's more with respect to the red line, and as to where the trees are proposed, they're very much on site, and the area based on the zoning requires a 30-foot setback, and the trees are, I would say, 40 to 50 feet away from the property line.
Now, if the tree path on your map is fine.
Okay.
We don't have that on our map, and then the other thing on your map is in that bottom corner where those few panels need to be moved.
Oh, here.
Correct.
Okay. The resource. Now I understand. Good point.
That's
Okay, so
Well, if I could just, that second issue, that is the location of the resource protection as obtained off of your town map. Looking at the shoreline zoning ordinance, this is the guidelines from the state of Maine, and most oftentimes the towns adopt those. They may be different, but there's a land use table in here, and the activity solar would be identified as essential service. There are a variety of ones mentioned. This would fall, I think, into the category of other, and it indicates that in the resource protection, the planning board may permit it. It's not prohibited, I guess is what I'm saying. And there's a footnote that is referenced, footnote 6, and it refers you to another section. And that section talks about essential services, and again, they're not prohibited in resource protection. It's just something that the planning board would have to approve. So
It goes on to talk about you can't put anything in that resource protection that has a visual impact. If you read it in there, I can't imagine anything having much more of a regional, an impact on the visual impact on that.
well, I take your point, Steve, but as to the visual impact, again, we're here at the back of the site, and this is where the CMP pole line is, and the woods, and so I think it's very distant from anywhere where the general public could see it. So, I guess it's a matter of, it is there, visual is a concern, but is it an impact?
Yeah, personally, visual doesn't make any difference to me, but if that's the way it's written, we have to decide on the way it's written.
Brett, you gotta better see that, those panels in your building?
I think it's far enough away, or whatever. It's not gonna be an impact to me. I mean, I'm not as close to.
And there'll never be any houses between you and them.
Right, as long as they can't go any farther to the.
That's the beaver house.
Left.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be down.
I mean, that's the limit, that's as far as you're gonna go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's directly behind the shop at least there, yeah. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, so basically just on that grade going down is where it'll stop.
Right.
And this would be above the grade.
It would require another meeting, because we have, if it goes into that resource protection area, then we have to have a shoreline zoning permit. Right now, we don't, even though part of the lot's in shoreline zoning, the structure that we're putting there is not, as I indicated, but I thought you had told me anyway, that we didn't want to go into that resource protection, because we didn't want to go through the shoreline zoning permit. That's what you told me.
Well, I was just clarifying a point, and it sounds like we're gonna have another meeting, so I don't want to, there are many other issues to discuss, so I was just clarifying the point, I guess.
Well, I think it's a valid point, all we're trying to do is help you out here.
Yeah, I'm not,
Right, well, just a second here, hopefully we're trying to give you, tonight, this is what you need to take action on when you come back.
Yes.
So what I think we're trying to resolve is, do you need to take some of those panels out? I mean, I'd kind of like to see, let's charter a path here, which way we're headed, okay?
Yes.
Do we need to take some of those panels out, or are we gonna go for the shoreline permit, or what are we gonna do? And then I'd like to say, okay, we made that decision, mark that box off, let's go next,
okay.
okay? So, like, I understand with these panels and I guess what are you willing to do right now? Take the panels out, or do you want to go for this shoreline permit?
I will let the developer answer the question. I think we can answer the, Carter, what would you like to do?
I think it was, sorry, it's a little hard to hear, but the question was those 3 tables that are in the 250-foot buffer.
Yes.
Do we remove them, or do we remove them? Move the fence line and just remove them?
That is the question, whether we move them or keep them where they are and, take on a shoreline permit.
Right, and I think we would just remove them to honor the 250 and stay out of it completely.
Okay, we've chartered that path.
All right. All we have to do now is just update the maps.
Thank you.
All right.
Let me do it this way. Let me go through and identify all the things that Steve has identified in mine. And Cole, you said that you made some changes.
Yes.
So you can say yes or no.
Yes.
And so let's go to, if we're on page 6, the buffers and types, those have been added, correct? Under B, 8.1B?
Yes.
Okay, so those have been added?
Well, the question is, what size trees?
The
In the back, right there.
here's the detail now. The trees would be 6 to 8 feet tall, and they would be spaced 3 feet on center.
That seems reasonable to me.
Okay. So that's okay.
Good.
So we fixed it.
3 foot on center?
That's
Just seems kind of close, but.
yeah. Well, I mean,
No, not a problem, I just.
it could be. I mean, I agree it's close. I mean, they could be made.
6, 8 feet.
Yeah, yeah.
The root ball is that big.
Those trees.
So
never
what type of
grow
tree is that
together.
again? Supposed to be a cedar?
Northern cedar.
Northern cedar.
Yeah.
So go down to the bottom of that item, right, that bottom of the one right there, you'll see where it says, the planning board considers the information sufficient or not. Do we want to give that a check?
I would say sufficient.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you lost me in the last part.
Under section 8.1,
Okay.
where it's italics print there, down at the end of that, please see the plan, and so forth. Please check 1, the planning board considers the information submitted to be sufficient, or the planning board requires boundary line lengths. Is it sufficient?
Yes.
So we check that. Complete tax map 11 lot 2. At the very bottom of page 6, if you go to the top of page 7, is that information sufficient?
By rule, yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Under I, or the please, Steve suggests the additional information, a financial statement. Did we get a financial statement?
The information that's been provided. I'm trying to find. If you find the first fold out, which is the tax map, and then go forward of that 1 page, there's a page that has Sincarfa at the top, and it speaks to the financial plan of Sincarfa's.
Everybody okay with that?
I believe you answered that in the actual application to, you answered that question. What you're looking at is my finding of fact, but if you find the one that's your application, I think you addressed it there.
I think the response in the application simply states that it's in the booklet and this is what is there.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, so that's okay. So, the next one down talks about item K. Do we have that?
Item K.
Can we just back up a little bit on this financial piece?
Yeah.
I don't want to be a pessimist here or anything, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, thinking, I kind of like the financial plan is like, I kind of like to see something a little more concrete and tell me, what else you're invested in. I mean, Solyndra was doing great, for a while there. He got all kinds of money and then they went away in a week. I mean, I'm not suggesting that for this company, but I'm just thinking that, what's the actual plan? How's it gonna get paid for? When is it gonna be paid? And, this doesn't tell me that much.
Was that a question about how it's gonna get paid for?
Well, yeah, we have a checklist here that we're supposed to be, verifying things from, and we asked for financial information to be submitted to be sufficient, and I don't really see where this is telling us, the planning, of it all. Evidence that the applicant's technical and financial capability to carry out the project as proposed. I don't see where this makes me feel like it's sufficient evidence.
Normally you'd have a bank letter of credit or something along that line showing that,
That's why I put that concern in there.
This doesn't really tell me anything.
So I'll speak to it, and we might, if you want more paperwork, we can get you more paperwork before the next meeting. We have a long-term partnership with a family office out of North Carolina called Pacolet Milliken. They're a long-standing textile manufacturer, which is really where they made and continue to make all of their money. And they have a fund where they're looking to put it to work in both real estate and renewable energy. So we've been working with them for the last, I want to say, 7 years. That's where the equity, most of the cash will come from. Sincarfa also contributes some cash to that, but the majority of it comes from Pacolet Milliken. So that's described in that letter, but I can also get a letter with more detail from Pacolet. What we've done in the past when we respond to RFPs for towns, we'll get a letter from Pacolet's accountant basically stating how much cash they have on hand and available to do this kind of project, so we could get you that if that would make you feel more comfortable.
that division they have for this renewable energy, is that separate from the financial of the main company? Is that overlooked by an auditing firm or anything?
No, it's all the same. So if they don't have like Pacolet Renewable or something like that, it's all the same entity. And we are the only ones that they do renewable energy projects with. But to answer your question, no, it's all under the same parent.
Brent, I'm gonna go back and, you can throw your chair at me if you want. But I'm gonna go back and suggest that maybe we all spend a little bit more time going through this. And, Steve and I can sit down and go over these, because I think some of these have changed. We can call you guys later in the week and say, here's where we stand. Because I don't think they have any rooms out at the motel for people to stay tonight.
And you made suggestions earlier, and I'm not sure I'm ready for that either.
Okay.
So,
but I don't think that, I think that this is bigger than a bread box. And I think if we're going to do something for the town, we do want it to be a model. We want to make sure that it's done so that, and I think, what's his name again? What's his name?
Carter.
I think, Carter, before I made the statement about, is there anybody else in Maine that is doing this? And there isn't anybody yet. So that's why I think, A, if we're going to do something, we want it to be the best it can be. Number two, we want to have something so that when some other idiot asks that question, you can say, oh, well, go check out the one in Pittsfield because they really like what we did. And that it becomes a model. And
Absolutely.
And so I think we want to make sure that even if it takes a little bit longer, and we realize you guys have the trucks that you want to bring in here on Friday, but it's going to take a little bit longer to do that.
Yep, understood. And I can say we don't have any operational, but we do have one project fully permitted in Augusta and another project fully permitted in Corinna. And Cole and Kathy can speak a little bit more to the one in Corinna. The code enforcement officer there has permitted 2 other solar projects, and he just approved ours late last week. So while it's not built, he did, review the package and has experience with it. So we'd be happy to make that connection. I can also put you in contact with town managers and town planners in Massachusetts, and I can pull together a list of towns where we've done projects in the last couple of years there as well.
Well, and at this point, I'm not, well, okay, no, that sounds fine, but I think, maybe talking with the folks in Corona, but again, that's my concern. So I want to make sure that we all have time to adequately go through this list and make sure that it's what we want it to be.
I mean, it's not our intent to bull through this evening, and there's, clearly you have questions, and we feel like we got up to a very good start, but
Where in Corinna is that project?
it's on the White Road.
White Road?
White Road.
Where's that?
I'm trying to think. I know Corinna pretty well. I guess I can't place it.
Okay.
Have you physically been there?
It's a farm as well, and we Power have delineated the wetlands there. I personally have not been.
But I just, if you drive into Corinna on Route 7,
Yeah.
you go through town.
You take a right out of town, and then another right onto the White Road.
It's, towards Exeter.
On the one towards Exeter.
Sure.
Yeah, so it'd be, sorry, I can't think, 43?
Yeah, it would be 43.
Yeah. So I get a feeling where it is now. So.
Everybody feel comfortable with my suggestion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we will continue working on this and go from there.
Yes.
We're not trying to discourage you, but even for the last solar farm, it took months to get this done. And I'm not saying it's gonna take much, but there's a lot of homework done that needs to be done. It's just kind of a learning process. I don't think that the town is against it. Okay?
Oh, no, I don't.
We just have a responsibility for the citizens of the town as
I
well.
understand. I used to be on the planning board myself, so I understand why you ask these questions.
Yeah.
And this is all brand new to me. So
Yeah.
it's all happening at the same time. So it's hard, it's not really a solar project to point to and say, here's one. They're all being sort of permitted all at the same time.
Everybody's chasing the magic dollar.
I mean, we're a lot happy that the town was staying in the state.
The reason that we called it a public hearing tonight was that if everything had been clear and cut and precise, you guys probably could have approved it, and we were trying to do that to kind of speed that along. But there's just too many questions that remain to be answered. So I don't think we can do anything with it. I would recommend doing anything with it tonight.
Steve, do you have a sense we're gonna have to do another public hearing, or will this suffice for the?
I think this was suffice. We've notified everybody within
Okay.
250 feet with letters and
And we get a chance to
We
respond.
advertised it in both papers. It was in the Rolling Thunder for 2 weeks, two showing the water bill savings. So everybody's had notice of the meeting and so forth. So I wouldn't think we need another public hearing.
And in here, Mo, there's also one of the lines that says schedule a public hearing. We could say we've had one already.
Yep.
Right, so. Okay,
We're looking for a motion.
so we don't actually need a motion at this point.
No. Adjournment.
Oh, no. Soon.
Been a long day.
It has been a long day. Okay, moving along on the agenda. Old business. I'm still working with, well, this bonus thing and so forth. It's really kind of screwed things up a little bit. I'm talking with Heather. There's still the plan to sit down with the council and begin to develop some goals and so forth. And I think, have some work sessions. And I think the approach that she and I have talked about is you start out with a question and say, do you really want to be 10 years from now? And then you work backwards from there in terms of what are some changes that we need to make. So, once we can meet again in session and pass donuts around and those kinds of things, then I think we will start that discussion, but this has really pushed those back quite a few months. But I think it's even more important now than ever. The other thing so that's old business, that's the only other thing under there. Under discussion items, Steve, I meant to ask this question today, you may or may not know the answer to this question. How many houses are there for sale in town right now, do you know?
I hear there's a very few, but I don't know for a fact.
And I've heard that also.
Thank you and good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Look forward to coming here again. Thank you.
He's actually lying, but that's he doesn't. I
think houses for sale and houses that are empty is a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and I think, I was going to put Steve on the spot and ask him about, maybe some of the properties that we've expressed some concern about, but since the courts haven't met for a while, why there hasn't been a whole lot that's been done, and you know which place I'm referring to, number one. But I think that, the other possibility is that there's this thing floating around, and I'm not sure whether this is coming from the council or not. And that is that, maybe we need to go a little bit different route in terms of thinking about, instead of trying to get businesses to come to town, maybe we need some housing. Because we are pretty centrally located for the Bangor, Waterville area. And so if that's a possibility, what kinds of marketing, what kinds of things have been done to get people to come here and buy property. So, if that requires some changes in zoning and those kinds of things, maybe we need to give that some consideration in the not too distant future.
One side note on these houses that are empty, we've got, the person, basically people that have gone into nursing homes, the houses are sitting empty, and we had interest in my father-in-law's house, and things have changed again in the state. Every year or two they change the rules on how things work. So now it's basically, it has to be appraised and find like valued homes in the area. That money goes into their account. They get kicked off of main care during that time, and then they have to reapply once the money's gone. And the last time my wife did that for her father, it took multiple months to get back on. So it's one of those things that for the few months of value the house was going to bring, it wasn't worth taking the chance of being kicked off main care and not being able to get back on easily. So I don't know the exact number, but I could drive you up and down all the roads in Pittsfield, and there's numerous houses that have been empty for a long period of time.
Yep.
And town isn't getting tax base for them, well, most places.
Does the state take possession, ownership?
They can't take ownership until the person passes. So the house is deteriorate over time, because you're not gonna wanna put money into a house that you don't own.
I would say there's probably at least 10 houses.
I would say in bare minimum.
Yeah.
And if the properties aren't signed over before the person needs to start receiving services, they can't sign it over.
I think it's
After
minimum,
they
I think it's a
start.
minimum of 5 years before.
I think there's leeway depending on, like if a spouse dies or
Right,
something
okay.
like that, there can be leeway, but other than that, we just went through this with my grandparents, on my dad's side, and it's a mess.
So what's the issue here? What's the issue?
Well, the issue comes down to,
The issue is that older folks like Brett and myself, sorry Brett, I'm not sure that there's a lot of, and I'll use the word counseling for seniors. And maybe that's a service that can be picked up somehow by the town to say every once in a while, maybe we need to get some of the senior citizens together and say, here's some things that we all need to think about. Because, I'm there too. And so it's not necessarily just making sure we have nice houses, but it's caring about the people in the community as well. And what do some of the folks need? The other piece is, I think there are 3 people that I know who, because we have some generous people in town, who go around and will pick people up who are too old, who are giving up or giving up their car, but they still need to go shopping. And so what do we have for transportation? What do we have for those kinds of services for those people? Because we still maybe want them in town because maybe they're not ready to go into a nursing home or a senior living center yet, or they don't want to, they want to stay there. But what are we going to do for rides? And so I think this is a whole different, and it may not sound like part of the planning board discussion, but I think it is, in conjunction with the council, to say, what do the folks in town really need? And how do we provide that service to them? Or, what's out there? Not that we have to do it, but to help them find those services. And I think Terry at the hospital is really willing to help in that process. And I think that there are some other places too. But you're right, and there's a lot of empty houses that are just, it takes about 4 years and all of a sudden they really begin to look bad. So, and that doesn't help when somebody drives through town and is looking for a place to live. Or looking for a town to live in. So, any other discussion items? If you all want to have me leave, that's fine. I can resign.
You're not getting off that easy.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
Well, I'm kind of glad to hear speaking of that, Jan, because I'm of the same belief that where do people go that want to move this to? I think I shared with you that, I don't think I shared with the rest of the folks here, but it was, shortly before this whole stand down started, but I was at the doctor's office up there next to the dollar store, and there was a young gal that was, taking your vital signs and all that stuff. And I've never seen her around town, so I said, hey, where are you from? Oh, my husband and I just moved up this way from Saco. I said, oh. And her husband works at the hospital, and she works up there. I said, oh, where did you buy it? I thought, just bought this here. No, bought a house in Newport. Now here's the young professional couple,
Ask them why. Nothing to buy in Pittsfield. And as I've talked before, I mean, go up to Hamden. Now, those folks had a comprehensive plan for a long time. And their plan was they were gonna get all those doctors from Eastern Maine Medical Center to move to Hamden. And they got themselves one nice community today. And you look what Colby College is doing down there. We could be, just like Hamden, grabbing those professionals up here. Not that that's all we want, but we need to increase the valuation in the town to be able to get the tax base to do what Jan's talking about, to have these services for senior citizens now. But we just don't have that in our budget. We gotta find a way to generate that revenue to have those services, and then more people will come. But we gotta find that first string to pull to get things going.
Yeah, and a housing development or a house is not gonna outweigh a huge factory coming in here in terms of taxes. But that's not gonna happen anymore. And so, you know, you gotta start somewhere. And, you know, if it means rezoning, and I think Steve is probably looking at me right now, isn't he? If we have to rezone to be able to do some things for some housing developments or something like that. I think we need to.
There's small steps too.
Yeah.
When you start this blight, some of these houses need to go. You drive from town and you know, that they belong to see half a dozen of them, right? And then the roads, of course, are terrible. So, you know, it's.
Unfortunately, some of the worst roads are the state roads that we have no control over.
Right.
That's true. But again, I think that's another issue that could have been handled a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, that's where we stand. So.
I actually have a question about the zoning thing, if I could ask you, Steve. You said on that map that the tree line was to separate the residential zoned area, which includes our property, which we were told is not residential, and we were not allowed to have an apartment upstairs like we wanted to do, because it wasn't zoned for that. Even though it's technically multi-use, we were told we couldn't do that, even though one had already started up there when we purchased it.
I believe that you're in the commercial highway zone.
And that's the former real estate building?
You know where the bottle
The building is the bottle redemption place.
Oh, okay.
And the tree line goes behind ours because apparently it's residential. But we butt up against C.M. Brown. There is a house in between us and C.M. Brown.
Yeah.
It's kind of been notched out of our property. But as far as I knew, we were not residential, and we had approached you when we purchased it to have an apartment.
I remember that.
Because the people downstairs had I don't know if it was a son-in-law or somebody who needed to rent, and they figured, well, since they'll be working at the Redemption Center, you know, that would work out. But how are we not residential, but we are residential?
No, you're not residential, I don't believe. You're in the R2, which is a commercial highway zone.
So what I read in that plan, because I got a copy of the plan being we're really about that property, that says we were R3, and that's why you needed to have the tree buffer. That's where my question is. I'm trying to understand, are we or are we not allowed to have something residential there? Because that's part of the rezoning that you're talking about.
Not in that commercial highway zone. That residentials are not allowed there. That map that they have that shows where the buffer is, they brought that tonight, I haven't seen that. It may be wrong, it sounds like it's wrong from what you're saying.
Well, from what I understood, our whole area is actually considered commercial.
Yeah.
So C.M. Brown, us, the guy next to us, Ames, I think it is, that's next to us.
Yeah.
Then you have the case management place, and then you have, so I don't know where the residential is. That's what I'm asking. Where's the residential? Because I don't know what that
It
is.
probably starts at the north of the filling station property, then goes up towards Franklin Street.
So then technically, they don't need to put trees there,
Well,
because that's on the other side of their
yeah,
plan.
see, I don't think their map is right. And one of the next questions was to show where all the zone lines were, and they didn't do that in here in their application.
Sorry, I just had that question because I read
No,
that packet very extensively.
I-
And I'm like, how are we residential? Because I was told we weren't.
Yeah, no, I don't think.
But that would be something that could be addressed. I mean, we have space to have apartments back there, but we can't.
Well, I think we have, the other discussion we've had that's been tabled for a while, which is really all of a sudden, I think, if you will, taken off like wildfire, are the little houses. Small houses, and is that something that we want to have here? Because those are great for those of us that need one bedroom and bathroom close by at an early age group, so.
But we never defined.
But
Did we define a small house?
well, we're still working on it.
Right.
That's been tabled, but I think, again, that's why when Heather and I are talking, we said, start out 10 years from now, and let's work backwards. And what can we do now? What needs to happen now in order to get some of those things in place?
Did you get put on hold?
I don't know what's going on with that.
Anna must be listening to something good.
Oh my God. Okay, anybody else have any items for discussion? You want to say something funny or not? Can you kill that at all? You know how to turn that off.
Got a hammer?
Do we have a date when you think that meeting's gonna happen?
Well, I was just gonna say, we'll see if we may have to wait, we may have to have another meeting before our next regularly scheduled meeting, so I'll work with Steve and see what we can do to
We're gonna have a busy summer. We got this one to relook at again. We've got one from Nitro Trailer. We've got one from a Walgreens store. I've got an appeals board meeting. That won't affect you guys. But I've just been so busy that, with permits and septic designs and inspections and the thing down
Because
there.
nobody can do anything else?
They're very, very busy. They just don't have time to do anything but issue permits and deal with these site plan reviews.
That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Okay, and on that note, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. Anybody against that?
I miss these meetings a lot.
Now you know what to drink for.
I do. Nice to meet you. Meet you later. Down the road.
It is bad here.
Gotta get that meeting and can't keep kicking it down the road.
What's that?
I said, we just can't keep kicking that meeting down the road with the town council. No, the town council, the one with the town
Oh,
council.
yeah.
We gotta do something. Hey,
Anyway,
your wood pile looks nice, Rock.
Make sure you leave my spot all nice and clean.
look at this mess in there. Here's where the development is going to go, right? This is a sewer line for what appears to be across.
At one point, I was
They're
sitting,
located down on the plans here.
Where does that
Down
sit?
sewer.
Back.
over there.
Yeah.
At one point,
No, but this is another issue that will come up later on as we go through this.
calendar, and it was a month.
Where is that?
And without even hinting, they like
That is
pulled
the
it
their
off.
property? We don't know.
And, no, she didn't, but they were very concerned.
Oh, yeah, she did.
Chris Pelletier is no concerned about
Probably a month
that.
behind you because
You know,
we.
that's how, where that
I
money
think
is
she
and why it
uses her
is.
tablet. I
Yeah,
don't know. That's hilarious.
Nothing came of
Right,
it.
here, who would have-
One time I was looking at mine, and I'm like, it's not April.
They even tell lousy job in this whole thing.
Because I use my
They
phone.
have 2 weekends, right? Where normally they only have one.
Did you ever find someplace where
Hmm?
Actually, my doctor made cancellation.
No, I
so
I tried to help them out, that's what I try to do, is try to get
Had we
it.
not, I would have been calling
You
that
have the
number
information you need.
because I just-
Here's my.
And it's possible that, because he won't be able to, I'm seeing him on Thursday.
Something.
He won't be able to see me again after that,
They want to get a couple of these started.
until after I get back, so I'm gonna try to get something in between there. We'll see
They,
what he says.
they did do a good
I
job.
go, This, just sitting in that chair, reaching down to grab my water,
It's kind of
and I
convoluted.
feel the little, I don't know if you've ever
Oh, I
had
didn't realize your name
things,
was Kat.
but it's, that's what it's like.
it
It's
is.
like, holy cow.
Yeah, we get it, we get it fairly frequently. And it's somebody on that strike mentioned Echoes River. Are you familiar with that at all?
That didn't work
So
out
that
too
was
well.
something that my doctor said we may have to move to if we
Right.
can't correct it with
I didn't think it
motion
was,
sensor.
yeah.
So what you do is it's a process where you turn the head and you position the body to kind of move
Yeah,
the
yeah,
nose
yeah.
and the ear. And it's so crazy. You turn the head just a little bit and you see the eyes start to whip around because of that.
So for me, it's anytime I move to the right. It's like, what the heck? And they said that what that can mean, because I did a little research on it, what that can mean is that it's actually leaning more toward, I can't remember if it was more toward the left or the right, but it's leaning more toward one side, which is why it's one-sided when I turn, but it affects me. But it's like, holy cow, that's ridiculous.
It's crazy how one thing will just kind of put you down, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I'm worried about it because I have to fly.
Yeah.
And I'm